here in Chicago. This is by Edward Earl Stone. When this building was first constructed, it was the tallest marble-clad building in the world. Today, this building is clad in North Carolina granite. Oh, what happened to all that marble? Well, it was clad in this beautiful Carrara marble, the same marble Michelangelo used to sculpt the David. But that marble did not like Chicago's weather. The heat fluctuations from hot and cold caused that marble to buckle off the building and fall into the street. Much to the dismay of passerbyers, it was of course no bueno. So we then had to rip off all of that expensive marble off that building and replace it with North Carolina granite, which is more forgiving of our weather. So that cost about $80 million, and that's pretty much the price of a brand new skyscraper. So yeah, somebody made a mistake. If you're wondering now what happened to that exclusive marble that we entered that quarry for, it is now tchotchkes and gravel. So if you have gravel in your driveway and it's Carrara marble, it might be from Aeon Center, who knows? Could be the case. Now again, on the left-hand side here, we have this alternating blue and dark blue glass, this triangle-shaped building here. This is Squeeze Hotel by architect Harry Weiss. Harry Weiss loved nautical themes, so he loved triangles like sails. Sometimes when the architects find something that they like triangles, it's kind of hard to get them to do anything else. Squeeze Hotel is in a triangle shape, of course, but that's really cool because it optimized views on two sides instead of just the one, which is super helpful. Now the building just ahead of Squeeze Hotel, you'll see this beautiful building with the wavy balconies coming into view. This was built in only 2009, so it's still a baby skyscraper, and already one of Chicago's very favorites. This is Aqua. Aqua was designed by architect Jeannie Gang and Associates. And this building is the third tallest building in the world built by a female-led architecture firm. Ooh, go girls, how cool is that? It of course is very unique with its wavy balconies, aqua, for good reason, because it kind of looks like water. Oh, it certainly does. Now these balconies are really cool. Every balcony is unique. No two balconies are the same, so everyone has their unique floor plans. Also, the great thing about these balconies, you can't see into your neighbor's balcony, which is much appreciated for privacy and what have you. And they also wrap around the outer edge of the building to optimize the views. Most balconies will stop right at the edge, but these ones actually wrap around, so you can get the best views possible. If you look real quickly at the way that Squeeze Hotel, Aqua, and then the black building next to it, that space right in between them there, it's got this really beautiful, different textures, different window colors, and I love the way that the wavy balconies kind of play in between these buildings. As we move along, it's not just the buildings themselves, but the spaces in between that are really cool and are worth noting. So I just love the way that these three buildings kind of interact with one another as if they're speaking to one another, which I think is really cool. Now in the distance here on the right-hand side, we have this sort of staircase effect building with this onion dome at the very top, this yellow onion dome. We'll see it even better as we pass under the bridge. That is Intercontinental Hotel. Is anyone staying there? It's a really famous hotel, and it's absolutely beautiful by all aspects. But if you look again at this building here, that onion dome at the very top there, that was originally a blimp dome. They thought that having your own personal blimp was going to be a thing. Like people have private jets now. Yeah, they thought having your own private blimp was going to be the wave of the future. But unfortunately, the Great Hindenburg disaster happened, and they decided to kind of cut that idea out. So, yeah, they decided not to do that any longer. Here to the right-hand side in the distance, we have this black trapezoid building with the X's out in front, the two white spires. That is the John Hancock building. We'll be talking about that a little bit as we move along, but it kind of darts in and out of view, so just to point that out real quickly so you know exactly what building I'm talking about when I talk about the John Hancock building. And those X's out in front. Now directly ahead of us here, this white building in two parts here. This is the Wrigley building. This is done in a Beaux-Arts style of architecture. Beaux-Arts means fine arts in French. And you can tell it's Beaux-Arts because it has a very specific wedding cake kind of design. It's very ornate, very decorative. You can tell by when you look at it. It's also put in this white glazed terracotta, this beautiful stone. It's very sensitive, this white glazed terracotta, so it has to be hand washed every 5 to 10 years. You cannot power wash this building. So you will see people hanging off the side of it, giving it a hand wash, because it's very sensitive and we can't do anything else, which takes them a long time. This building is meant to be beautiful from every angle, and it certainly is. Now, this is the same Wrigley as Wrigley Gum and Wrigley Field. They don't own this building or the field anymore, but in a Chicago style, we don't really like to change the names of things. You know, that's kind of the way we do things. So it will always be, of course, the Wrigley building. This is also done in the same style as the Spanish Cathedral de Seville. And if we look up at the clock tower there, at the very top, hi, how's it going? Those may look like Roman numerals to you, but they are not actually. They are W's, because it's always time for Wrigley. It's kind of a funny joke. Now, when Wrigley first got started, they actually made soap. People did not like their soap, and no, I don't know how you make bad soap, but people didn't like it. As a promotion to boost sales, they put gum in the packaging. People really liked the gum, but they hated the soap. So, if at first you don't succeed, try again, right? They made a whole empire on selling gum, which was a happy accident. So, good for them. Now, the silver tall tower in front of us here has a very ambiguous name. I don't know if anyone can guess what it is. The Trump Tower, yes. How did you guess? This is our Trump Tower, built in 2009. This is by Adrian Smith of Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. Adrian Smith is an authority on super tall skyscrapers, and this is our second tallest building here in Chicago. This building is done in a postmodern style. So it's very site-specific. It's contextualizing its surroundings exactly for this one location. It's being a good neighbor, politics aside. We're talking about architecture here today. So the first setback is at the same height of the Wrigley Building's main block. The second setback is at the same height of Marina City, just ahead of us. And the third setback is at the same height of the Black Building next to it there at AMA Plaza. This silver reflective glass is also perfectly picked out to transition in the skyline from the beautiful white glazed terracotta of the Wrigley into the silver and then into the Black Building next to it. So it is being a very good neighbor. Anywhere else in the city, anywhere else in the world, this building would not look like this, exactly for this location. Now, the Black Building next to Trump Tower here may not look very interesting, but it is very important. This is by architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, and we are going to hear his name a lot. He's a very important architect throughout history. He came from a 20-year gap where we weren't building anything. There was the Great Depression of World War I. Nothing was being built for 20 years. And then this happened. The steel box modernism, the bare bones of a skyscraper. So it's very revolutionary, very radical at the time. It is literally just steel to hold up the building, glass to hold it in. That's it. No filigree, no decoration, just the bare bones of a skyscraper. AMA Plaza is the last building Mies van der Rohe did before he died. And he has about 60 buildings here in Chicago. Yes, they pretty much look like that. So you can walk around the city and now at least you will be able to tell a Mies van der Rohe building when you see it, because they all pretty much look like that. They're very easy to spot. Coming up on our right-hand side, we have these really cool two curvilinear buildings here. We call these Marina City, also known as the corn cob towers, because they kind of look like corn cobs. Oh, how cute. These are by architect Bertrand Goldberg, and he is actually a student of Mies van der Rohe. So while Mies van der Rohe was drawing squares, Bertrand Goldberg was very inspired by circles, by nature. He wanted this to be a city within a city, so it has all your modern conveniences in one building. We have condos at the top, parking garage at the base. At the very bottom, we have shops and restaurants, a bowling alley, an ice skating rink, a theater, which is now the House of Blues, still a very popular venue in Chicago, and of course your own marina. Now, the rooms are kind of broken up into pie slices, so they're hard to furnish, but people have always really liked them. They go from generation to generation, and yeah, people love the building. Now, that parking garage makes you a little bit nervous. Kind of looks like someone might drive off the back of it. That has actually never happened, knock on wood, that's never been the case. If you do think you've seen a car driving off the back of that into the Chicago River, that is just a Steve McQueen movie, The Hunter. Yeah, and they reenacted that for an Allstate commercial as well. But it's never happened in real life. They're correcting the tunes to take care of your car for you, so that sort of event does not happen. Now the red brick building just ahead of us here on the right hand side with the clock tower and the whirlpool sign at the very top. This is our Reed Murdoch Center. So very happy waving children. Hi guys! Everyone's so happy. It's a beautiful, beautiful day. I am sharing that enthusiasm to the nth degree. Now this is the Reed Murdoch Center. This was built in 1914. If you were to travel along the Chicago River during 1914, this is a lot of what you would see, a lot of warehouses, brick buildings, this sort of style. This is done in a prairie school of architecture, which is very low and flat like a prairie. We're in the Midwest, so that makes a lot of sense. Think of architects like Frank Lloyd Wright, this man waving like the Queen. I love it. Great. Architects like Frank Lloyd Wright, very smushed into the horizon, that sort of idea. Now, if we count the bays of window on this side, there are 6, and if we count the bays of window on this side, there are only 5. The building is asymmetrical. What happened? Well, when LaSalle Street just ahead of us got a little bit wider, and the Chicago style, we just trimmed a little bit off the building. That's a perfect illustration of how we do things here in Chicago. We want to widen the street. We're not taking no for an answer. There's a big building in our way. We'll just cut right through the building. That's kind of our style of doing things. Now, the red brick building just ahead of us here with the green gray exterior by the Chicago Pet Steakhouse right here. This is our Helen Curtis building. This was originally a coffee warehouse. This is where we stored our coffee. And now this building is a perfect example of Chicago's School of Architecture, and that has 3 parts. It has a base, a shaft, and a capital. Those 3 parts means it's Chicago School of Architecture. Now it says Chicago School on the outside, but that is actually just a happy coincidence. This is the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, has nothing to do with architecture, but it's clearly labeled, so you should at least know one school of architecture by the time you leave today, because this one is right there for you. Now, the building on our right-hand side here, this huge, massive Art Deco building, this is the Merchandise Mart by Graham Anderson, Probst, and White. Marshall Field commissioned this building. He's that retail giant, very well known here in Chicago. We can tell it is Art Deco by some contributing factors. It is stone clad, that's the first feature. Secondly, it has these beautiful recessed ribbon windows which draw your eye vertically. Thirdly, it has the stone setbacks at the very top there, that staircase effect. And fourthly, it has these diamond chevron shapes. It loves geometry. That's sort of an Art Deco style. It's futurism, streamlined, symmetrical, kind of like thinking about a robot in a building. Like it's very futuristic, that's the idea. Now this building is so massive actually, it is 2 square city blocks. That's 2 blocks by 2 blocks. It's absolutely massive. It's 4.2 million gross square feet altogether. And up until a couple of years ago, it had its very own zip code. One zip code for one building, 60654. It also has its own train station. That's pretty massive. We'll get a good view of that on the way back. Take my word for it. It's not only very wide here in front, but it's also very deep as well. We are now entering into that Y-shaped intersection of Wolf Point. This is where the river branches off into the south end, which is the financial district, and the north end, which is the residential area. We are first a little pioneer town. We have what every little town needs, taverns, of course. So we had taverns on every corner of Wolf Point, to the left, to the right, to the back. Every corner of Wolf Point has tavern. You can take a boat from tavern to tavern, like a little bar hopping, if you will. Now, if you walk around the city, you may see this shape on seals and emblems around the city. Sometimes it's upside down like a peace sign, sometimes it's right side up. That stands for Wolf Point, which is our river, of course. It's very important to us. So, you're welcome. Nice name for it. Where does Chicago get its name? Actually, it comes from a Miami Native American word, Shikagoa. And what does that mean? We noticed as we were walking through here that they kept calling this place Shikagoa. Yes, what does that mean? And they said, well, it means strong and powerful. And then we stopped listening. What it really means is strong and powerful onion. How nice. This was swampland, this was marsh area. Very distinctive, very smelly onions that grew here. And the Native Americans knew as they were walking through here, just by the smell, that it was that stinking onion. So that's what Chicago really means, is land of a stinking onion. Oh, isn't that romantic? Isn't that nice? It certainly is. Now here on the right-hand side, we have some construction going on, of course. We do have 2 seasons here in Chicago, winter and construction. They're definitely in construction season. There's only so much time we have to build things, so what we do it very quickly. These are going to be 3 brand new towers called Wolf Point Towers. They're going to be a whopping 50 stories, 70 stories, and a third one is going to be a 90-story tall building right here on the corner of Wolf Point. Now, what was this area before? Because this development is very recent. It was a really gorgeous parking garage. Yeah, how we were underutilizing the land. A parking garage with a beautiful view of the city, and now it's going to be in that same area where 3 tall towers are. So we're very excited about this new development. They're going to get a great view of the city, but someone is actually losing that view, and that's our friends on the left-hand side of Riverbend. When they were built in 2002, they had this beautiful view of a canyon of skyscrapers, and now they have a beautiful view of this construction. In Chicago, you don't own the viewing rights, you only own the plot of land, and they're learning that rather quickly. Hence the name Riverbend, bends with the river. It's some contextualism for you. Also, this building is very narrow. It's got a very thin plot of land. So to optimize the views, which they are now losing, they have all the condos in the front here and all these staircases in the back to use the land the best they can, but unfortunately, it doesn't become a lot more. Now the pink house to the left-hand side with the stars getting a bit of a facelift. This is Fulton House. This is our oldest building here on the tour, built in 1898. This was originally a cold storage warehouse. We were the Union stockyards. We processed over 100,000 animals a day. We needed a giant fridge to put that meat, and this fit the bill. This was our giant fridge. Check out these balconies. They're 3 to 4 feet thick. They're very thick. These were lined in horsehair. And when we renovated it, we took out over 2 tons of horsehair from this building. And to defrost it, it took about a month and a half to just defrost the building to even start to renovate it. Now she's 100 years old or so, so she's getting a bit of a facelift. She's a protected landmark, so we're not demolishing this building, but she does need some help. Seems like every day there's more and more holes missing out of that building, but she's getting a little bit of help, a little bit of renovation. We are now entering into Kedzie Park townhouses. This is a residential area, so out of respect for our neighbors, I do have to go silent on the mic. They do not like our tours as much as you folks do. But this is a perfect time to visit Lainey at the bar. We'd be happy to set you up with any drinks, wines, cocktails. Stay hydrated. Yes, beer and wine counts. $5 drinks downtown is a steal. So go enjoy yourself. Until then, just enjoy the ride. Hey guys, welcome back. Coming up on our right-hand side here, we have these funky little river cottages here. These are again by Eric. He's the same guy who did Ski's Hotel, that triangle-shaped building. Loves those nautical themes, right? So we have those triangle shapes like sails, and the round windows like portholes. Of course, your own brand. These were built in the 80s. He is also the same architect that renovated Fulton House at the same time, around the 80s. He was made fun of for building on, quote, the putrid ditch that is the Chicago River. So our ideas about the river have certainly changed in the last 15 to 20 years. If we check out this raised bridge on the left-hand side here, this is an old railroad bridge that we used to use. The clearance is quite low. Our boat could not fit under it. Maybe only kayakers could. So we raised this bridge. We keep it raised. It's a protected landmark now. So it's like a huge piece of public art. We like our bridges here in Chicago a lot. So we kind of pay homage to them. We have, of course, our raised bridge, which is really quite cool. Now, as we're passing this construction, you might want to get your cameras ready because it's a beautiful photo op of this gorgeous canyon of skyscrapers. It's a beautiful day for photos, of course. So if you have any selfies, right? Selfie sticks. Get yourself, yeah, selfie game on. You will see the beautiful canyon of skyscrapers that our poor friends at Riverbend are losing. So sad for them. And as we clear the construction, you will also see just how massive Merchandise Mart is. It's absolutely a huge building. It was and still is trade floors and showrooms. So you can do some window shopping in there.
Stasera ajándék van. De azért ennyi.
River traffic. So from this point in the river, on the right-hand side, we have some circles cut out of this concrete here, some exhaust fans going. What are those fans exhausting? Well, they're actually train tracks, active train tracks that we still use today underneath skyscrapers. From this point of the river, on the right-hand side, all the way up the south branch. So they're exhausting the active train tracks that we still use today. As we move along, just keep that in mind. It's pretty crazy. So let me explain kind of how that goes. Amtrak owned this land first along the river, and that's prime real estate. They're not going to sell that to us, but they will sell us something they are not using. They are not using the air above the train tracks. So what they'll allow you to do is take out something like a 99-year lease. You can build support columns along the train tracks, and then build your skyscraper on top of this. It's called air rights construction. We've been doing it for a really long time. We're very good at it. And every skyscraper on the right-hand side of the south branch is all built on air rights construction. Now, this construction being done on the right-hand side here is being called right now some of the most exciting developments in the world. It's really quite cool. The base of this building being constructed is very narrow. It's very thin base. And then it has these trusses on either side that bow outward. So it's going to be very narrow at the base, bow outward on either side, and it's going to be very super tall. So it's pretty exciting. It's also going to be encircled with public parks, which is very nice. The people behind them in that red brick building, they used to live on the train tracks, and now they're going to have beautiful public parks to look at. So really exciting development going on right here in Chicago. Tons of really cool engineering. That is an example of it. It's really impressive to watch this building being built right before your eyes all summer long. On the right-hand side, this gray and black building, this is the Boeing building by Perkins and Will. Formerly, it was the Morton Salt Company's building. If we look up at the very top of this building, you'll see some circles cut out at the very top there. Oh, Morton Salt Company building, circles on the top. Yes, it was designed to look like a salt shaker. It's a bit of an architecture show, although very dry, I suppose. But it's now the Boeing building. And the best part, of course, is that this whole second portion of the building here is built on top of switching tracks. You can hear the train right now underneath there. Switching tracks is where the train switches tracks, but there's nowhere to put support columns. So what is supporting this section of the building from underneath? Nothing. There's nothing underneath the second portion of the building. What it is a cantilever truss system. It's like an armature that hangs this building from above, from the second half of the building. So it's actually holding it from above instead of supporting it from below. They won tons of awards for this cantilever truss system, and if you look behind you and look up, you will see that exposed truss. It's quite impressive. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around just how impressive that is. They left that exposed. They could have covered it up, but it kind of looks like our bridges. So they left that exposed for you. How cool is that? Just ahead of us here, we see tons of people walking in one direction. They're usually going to the police station. It's just kind of a thing. On the right-hand side, we have this really cool stone Art Deco building. This is by Hummelberg and Root, 2 North Riverside Plaza. This was built in 1930. That's how early we were building on air rights construction, 1930. So a huge portion of this building is set back to relieve the weight off of the train tracks. And these armatures on either side here were used to kind of make it look like this thing. That was the inspiration for this The building ahead of it here, this other black building, this is Gateway Center 2. They're done in that Mies van der Rohe style, that steel box modernism. But these are not actually by Mies van der Rohe, these are copycats. This is similar always in there. These were both designed in the 60s. That's how we're building everything in the 60s. Just like this. It's also called the international style because you can take these buildings and put them anywhere in the world and they fit in. There's no contextualism. It's not site specific. It is just the bare bones of a skyscraper. Now I ask you, do you really want to see a city full of this? Because this is how we're building everything. Not necessarily. Me personally, I don't know about that. They're pretty cool. They're very revolutionary, very radical at the time. But it doesn't leave tons of the imagination. It doesn't inspire me a whole lot. But that was our trend in the 60s. Everything was done in that bare bones of a skyscraper. Now the building just ahead of us here, the white building with those Miesian style windows, this is Gateway Center 3, and this is us in the 70s. That concrete on the outside of this building does not provide any kind of structure to the building, so technically, air quotes, it's decoration. I know it doesn't look like decoration or feel like decoration, but that's what it is technically. Kind of makes a plain building look plainer. I know, I hear that. But that was our baby step of the 70s away from that steel box modernism. Just baby steps, a little bit at a time. Now the black squat box just ahead of Gateway Center 3 here with the X's out in front. This is the Mid-American Commodity Exchange. Those X's provide structure from the outside instead of having support columns inside of the building. You need an open floor plan like that for open outright trade, which is what this was originally. This is now a fitness center or a bakery, but that's what it was first. You see these X's out in front of the John Hancock building, which we've already seen, provide structure to the outside. These were invented by engineer Fajler Khan. He was an engineering genius. And when you leave a structure like that exposed, which adds to the aesthetics, but also gives it structure, this is called structural expressionism, because it adds to the building's look as well as providing structure to the building. Now we saw Gateway Center 1, 2, and 3 from the 60s and the 70s, and now on the right-hand side, this green building, this is Gateway Center 4. This is us in the 80s. We are very over that steel box modernism. We are now into post-modernism, which is the era that we are in today. It is site-specific, contextualizing its surroundings, so exactly for this location. It curves like the curve of the river, green glass like the green of the river, and if you notice the light and the reflections playing off the windows here, you will see that the windows are bubbled, like water. That's the idea. They say that the postmodern buildings aged really well, and I think that this is still the case because you could build this today and it still looks very modern. That's the idea. Now we are still technically in postmodernism. We have moved a little bit past it, building a lot of very glassy structures, seamless, that kind of disappear up into the sky. But we won't know what that's called until we're out of it. So right now technically we're in postmodernism. Just like that, started in the 80s. Now here on the right hand side, we have this super massive Art Deco building. This is again by Graham Anderson, Probst and White, same guys who did Merchandise Mart, that other super massive Art Deco building. Just to illustrate to you just how big this building is, check out Congress Parkway, this highway, running through the middle of the building. Yeah, that's how massive it is. Highway running right through the middle of it. Now she's looking a little run down. We don't use this building anymore. Does anyone happen to know what this was? Post office, yeah, right. This is our old post office. Yeah, where you go buy a stamp, mail a letter to grandma. Yeah, this is our old post office. How ridiculous is the size of this building? This is, of course, the largest post office in the world because it's ridiculous in size. Why on earth would you need a building this large? Well, actually, catalogs, mail order catalogs are invented right here in Chicago. Commercial wheels, other words, Sears and Roebuck, they started right here in Chicago. If you were from a rural area, you couldn't get to the city, you had to order things from the mail out of order catalog. They were coming out of this post office. Anything from clothes to a house, you could order a house out of this building. Now, it is not the most functional design, truth be told. within this building. It would take longer to ship within the building than to ship out of the building. So no, not terribly functional. So we don't use this building anymore because it's a ridiculous size. We're just seeing one side of it. It's very deep as well. She is on the market if you're looking for a little multi-million-dollar fixer-upper. We haven't had anything really being done with this building since we closed it. Some filming has taken place in here. But yes, lots of development deals have almost gone through, and at the last minute they kind of fall through the cracks. So if you're looking for a little weekend thing to do, a little DIY project, she's definitely on the market. Now, as I mentioned, some filming was done in here. Has anyone seen the Dark Knight movie, the Batman movie? One guy, cool. Thank you, sir. I'm a new Batman fan. One person on the boat. So that opening scene where the Joker robs that Art Deco bank, it's actually an Art Deco post office. Yeah. Transformers was filmed in this building. Has anyone seen the Divergent and Surgeon movies? One guy, cool. We have 2 movie numbers on this boat. I'm so excited. Well, that is post-apocalyptic Chicago skyline, which gets me pretty nerdy about the skyline. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what building is being demolished right there. It's cool. A lot of filming gets done here in Chicago. Those are just some examples of it.
No.
So here on our right-hand side, we have our brand new post office. It was built in '92, so I guess it's very new. Compared to the old one, it's still pretty small compared to the old one, but big enough, right? Built in '92, a funny story about this post office is when they opened up their opening day, they were really excited for work. Of course, you know how excitable happy postal workers can get. So they moved the first truck in and they noticed something crucial, that they had measured the clearance for the trucks, yes. But they did not measure the clearance for the tires on the trucks. First truck goes in and boom, it gets stuck right in the entryway. So for an entire week, 1 week, they had to deflate the tires, move the trucks in, unload them in, re-inflate the tires for a whole week. Yeah. So yeah, somebody definitely made a mistake. They say to measure twice and cut once. That was not the case in this post office. How's that? On the left-hand side here, we have some more really cool curvilinear buildings. This is again by Bertrand Goldberg, that architect that did Marina City, those corncob towers. Same architect. Just like Harry Beast, who loves those triangles, Bertrand Goldberg loves those circles, right? Cannot get over it. Loves that design. He was very influenced by nature. He said that there are no right angles in nature. So that was his inspiration. This building was inspired by a serpent. He wanted it to snake along the river here, and he wanted there to be 2 parts, but only the one was realized. This too is a city within a city. All your modern conveniences in the same building. He had this idea that he noticed people working downtown and then moving out to the suburbs to live. He wanted to keep them right downtown, working and also living. So he built these cities within cities so that you could stay in the same building. You wouldn't even have to leave your house. It's like a recluse's dream. How great is that? And of course it has its own marina. Now, the cool thing about this marina is, in the winter, I don't know if you've heard, but Chicago winters get very cold, very, very cold. The water freezes over, it'll destroy your boat, so you have to go dock your boat in the winter. But this marina has its own bubbling system, so it circulates the water, so you don't have to move your boat. You can keep it there all year long, which is quite cool. Bertrand Goldberg also has a really cool quote, which I like a lot. He says, "We have to get people out of boxes. They're like psychological slums." Considering his mentor was Mies van der Rohe, the father of steel box modernism, those are definitely some words to be had. But I do invite you as you go about your day to kind of take that with you. You live in a box, you work in a box. How does that affect your psyche? I don't know. It's a rhetorical question. But think about that as you move along your day. If you lived in a circle, would that make you feel differently? I don't know. How does the architecture around you affect yourself and the way you feel? Think about it. It's something to think about. As we're getting turned around here, you're going to get another beautiful photo off of our city skyline. So if you want to get your cameras ready, this is yet another perfect opportunity to take some photos. So I invite you to enjoy the view. That building behind us here is an old power plant. It's built in the 1930s, so we put our power plant in Art Deco style. don't use it much anymore, obviously. Sometimes when you're giving tours, pieces of that building start falling into the river. It's quite startling. I like it a lot. It's really cool. Now, off in the distance on the left-hand side here, there's a control tower. You don't have to look very closely if you're being blinded. This is not a gorgeous plot of land by any means. But that control tower, although not interesting to look at, is a historic location. That is where the Great Chicago Fire 1871 started, right there in that spot. So you don't have to look at it for very long. You can enjoy the skyline behind me instead, so don't blind yourself. That Great Chicago Fire started right there in that location. Excuse me. It is now home to our Chicago Fire Academy, so they have a bit of a sense of humor as well. So there's a story about how that fire got started on that October day in 1871. Does anyone happen to know the story, how it got started? Well, this is the story, and this is how it goes. Miss O'Leary, right, goes to milk her cow in the middle of the night. She brings a lantern with her. The cow gets spooked, kicks over the lantern, catches her barn on fire, subsequently catching all of Chicago on fire. Oopsie poopsie. Oh my gosh. Miss O'Leary, what have you done? That's the story, but here's the truth. That is not the truth. That was made up by a newspaper. Miss O'Leary, though, was a real person. She was an Irish immigrant. She was ostracized for the rest of her life because of that story, which was not true. A newspaper made that up. They used her as a scapegoat, or I suppose like a scape cow. But she didn't do it. The cow was framed. It's not a true story. But we do know that it started in that location. We just don't know how that fire got started. There are some theories about how it got started, like a meteor flying low in the atmosphere. Chicago already was pretty much like a matchbox, just waiting to get lit up. We were going through a really bad drought. Everything was made out of wood. This was an industrial river, lined in wood, all sorts of contributing factors. It was also a really bad windstorm that night, so all sorts of things in play on that night. It was just like a perfect storm, no pun intended. So it started on that bank of the river, and the wind was so strong, it whipped that fire right over the river here. So that fire burned for 3 whole days. 3 days. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around that. The heat of that fire was said to be so intense it was melting brick. So that's kind of crazy. It completely leveled Chicago all the way from Roosevelt to Fullerton. For my one local, you know how crazy that is. For everyone else, that's a 4 mile by 1 mile area. So it's absolutely a massive amount of space. Completely demolished Chicago. There was nothing standing except for the water tower, which you can still see on Michigan Avenue. That was all that survived. Nothing else. So 100,000 people lost their homes, 300 people lost their lives, considering it was such a massive fire, the worst urban fire in history. 300 is not the worst number, although it sounds kind of disrespectful, so take it as you will. But it was absolutely devastating, right? Is everyone depressed yet? It was a devastating fire. It was the worst thing to ever happen to Chicago, but it was also the best thing to ever happen to Chicago. What do I mean by that? Well, it gave us something no other city gets to have, a blank slate. We got to rebuild our city in brand new and exciting ways. No other city gets to start from scratch, but we got to have that. It was like a blank book. We got to choose our own adventure and write whatever story we wanted to. So we decided to plan it better and also to make it beautiful. Architects came to Chicago in droves to make their stamp and their name on a city which needed buildings very desperately. So that's why this is called a living museum of architecture. That's why you're on this boat on this fine Chicago day. It's all because of that Great Chicago Fire. That's why this city is so beautiful. That's why we do filming here. That's why lots of things happen right here in Chicago. Now in this distance here on the right hand side, we've got this staircase effectively stone building with the aluminum statue at the very top there. That is the Board of Trade building. This is again by Paula Bird and Root, those same guys who did that sort of Sphinx looking building to North Riverside Plaza. This is originally where we sold grain futures. You sell grain before you've even grown it. So who is that statue at the very top there? The Roman goddess of grain herself, Ceres. Right? Ceres, like cereal, makes sense. Up until about 3 weeks ago, this is the last place we did open outright trade. Still very recent development. We've only done that very recently. It's all gone digital. Now compare that statue to the bays of windows here, and you can see that she's about 3 stories tall. She also has no face, and there's a legend behind that. And when I say legend, I usually mean some kind of lie. So for 20 years, this was the tallest building in Chicago, the Board of Trade. And they said that the architects were so cocky that they would say, oh, it's going to be so tall, no one will notice that the statue has no face. But that's not entirely true. You can kind of see from the street that she has no face. Here's the truth. It's an Art Deco style, so they'll streamline the face. If you think of like the All-Star statue, it's the same idea. Just streamline it. It's futurism. That's the idea. So if you like the other story, you can have that. I'm taking the practical story, because I guess that's my style. Here on the right-hand side, we have this pink building with reflective glass that's kind of crowded at the very top here. This is 311 South Wacker. This is the tallest building with just an address. We don't like that here in Chicago. We've got to get them cute little nicknames. So we call this sometimes the birthday cake building or the White Castle building. Something cute because 311 South Wacker doesn't roll off the tongue necessarily. Now check out at the very top this cylinder. At the very top of the building there, that shoots off a powerful light at night, changes colors for sporting events and holidays. But when this building was first constructed, that beam of light was so bright, birds were actually mistaking it for the moon. Yeah, and it was throwing off their migratory patterns. They were flying in the wrong direction, they were flying into the building. It was a bit haphazard. So since then we've had to dim that light to be kind to our nice feathered friends. That's not very nice to do. So it is dimmer, but we do still use that light. Here on the right hand side we have this sort of plain East Van style building and our largest piece of public art on the front here. This huge piece of art, this is an aerial view of Chicago. That red dot, that is this building. That's where we are right now. So you'll never be lost again. You can look up at the top and see that Y-shaped intersection of Wolf Point, that river, right? That's exactly where we are. Yay, you'll never be lost. Now, of course, let's talk about our crowning glory, the tallest building here in Chicago that everybody knows the name of. This building here is spelled W-I-L-L-I-S. It's pronounced Sears. Yes, thank you for your enthusiasm. This is, if you're looking for it on a map, the Willis Tower. Willis Company bought 3 floors and the naming rights, so technically it's the Willis Tower. But here in Chicago, we don't call it anything but the Sears Tower. So if you're asking Chicago local, it's the Sears Tower. Don't call it anything but the Sears Tower, right? Now, this is our tallest building here in Chicago, 110 stories tall, 1,451 feet of pure building. This is by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, done in that East Van style. It's the first time we did bundled tubing design. Now, those glass boxes on the outside here, those are people in those boxes. They can see you, you can see them. That is the Sky Ledge. Has anyone been on the Sky Ledge yet? Were you scared? No? Oh, brave people. I love it. The Sky Ledge is a glass box that hangs outside of the building that you get to walk into, and then you can look down into the street. People look like ants. You can see 3 whole states around you. It's a great view of the city. It's very cool. You go up to the Sears Tower. You might notice your ears popping in the elevator. It's one of the fastest elevators in the world, so you're changing pressure quite rapidly, which is pretty impressive. So this was the first time we did bundled tubing design. This is the same technology we're still using today to build super tall skyscrapers. Think of it like this, a single straw in the wind, right? It's not very structurally sound, it's going to bend, it's going to break. But if you take 9 straws and bundle them all together, stopping at different levels, then it provides more structure to the face of that building, and you can build taller and taller. That's the idea. That was invented by Fajr Khan, the same guy who did those X's in front of the American Flag Exchange and also the Hancock. Now, speaking of the Hancock, that is your second option to get into a super tall skyscraper. You can go to the Sears, you can go to the Hancock. Hancock has a 360 observatory. It's a really cool observatory, 360 views. They have their response to the Sky Ledge, which is tilt. Tilt is a pane of glass that you hold onto, and then it tilts out into the street but you have to get into a skyscraper while you're here. It's really worth your time and your money to get into a skyscraper. The views are amazing. And now you'll know what you're looking at. You look at all the buildings. Oh, how exciting. Now here on the right-hand side, this building with the globe out in front here, this is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center. This is by Fujikawa Johnson and Associates. Now these towers on either side of the building here, when they were built to be slightly bowed outward, so that when you hung this middle portion here, it would erect itself. So in theory, if you were to remove that, it would bow back outward again. Now check out the curtailment in this building, these serrated edges and how close they get to our bridge house. You cannot touch our bridge houses, they are protected, but apparently you can get 5 inches away. That is called crowding in architecture terms. That is frowned upon, but it does happen, and that is an example of it. Now here on the right hand side is another super massive Art Deco building. Just some guys playing on trash cans. Whatever, we'll talk about this building. This is our Civic Opera building. This is again by Graham Anderson, Probst and White, the same guys who did Merch Mart and the old post office. This is still home to our Lyric Opera, which is one of the best in the world. And if you're asking yourself what Civic Opera building is, it's not a typo. These are Roman characters. There is no U in Roman characters, so V is the closest thing. Now also check out these masks out front, these comedy and tragedy masks. I thought I said that Art Deco streamlines the face off of you. So what are these doing here? Well, in architecture there are trends, there are no rules. So for everything I'm telling you today, someone has bent in one way or another. And the 2 office towers on the other side of this main block, they were built to be office towers to be rented out to fund the opera itself. So it means old entity funding itself. That was commissioned by Samuel Insull, who's an electricity manufacturer here. And unfortunately, after he commissioned that building, the Great Depression happened and nobody wanted to rent that space out. But we still do use this building. There's actually a little promenade, pavilion thing, which is a long room, but it's very pretty. It's gorgeous. They wanted the opera to be accessible to everyone, not just the upper class. So that was the idea behind the opera house when it was first constructed. Now let's talk a little bit about our bridges and our bridge houses. I've mentioned bridges a couple of times. All of our bridges and all of our bridge houses are done in a different architectural style. Every one of them is unique. The one just ahead of us here is kind of a Mies van der Rohe style of building. My own personal opinion looks a little bit like a prison tower, but that is just my own critique of that. Bare bones of a bridge house, right? That's how we were building everything in the 60s. Looks just like that. So all of our bridges are done in a unique style, and all of our bridges move. These are called vascular trunnion bridges, and they're very cool. There's a weight system at the base of this bridge, so when it drops down, this bridge goes completely horizontal to completely vertical in under 1 minute. Super energy efficient, it's very fast. Like I mentioned, all of our bridges move. We have the most moving bridges in the world, 38 together, which is more than anyone else, which is pretty cool. We perfected this technology right here in Chicago. So out of Chicago, these are called Chicago-style bridges, which makes a lot of sense. It's easier to say than vascular trunnion bridge as well. Even our double-decker bridges, like the one in front of us here on Lake Street, even these open. Double-decker meaning, of course, our L, our elevator train at the top there, and then the base being up pedestrians and traffic. That's the green line going to Cottage Grove. Now, our trains are some of the loudest trains in the world. You may have noticed that. If you've ridden them, they're really quite noisy. And we call our downtown area the Loop because our elevated train, our L, which is what we call short the L, goes around the downtown in a loop. So it's kind of self-explanatory, right? It's not a loop, it's kind of cute. Now here on our right hand side, as we enter back into Wolf Point, this is 333 West Backer, this beautiful curving green building. This is a lot of people's favorite building for obvious reasons. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is 80s post-modernism again, so it ages really well. It looks still very modern. There's tons and tons and tons of contextualism in this building, given a tip of the hat to its neighbors all around it, which is very cool. It has this curving facade like the curve of the river, this alternating blue and green glass like the green of the river. This is done in sort of a pie slice, so we're looking at the crust of the pie here. Check out these pillars here. There's kind of of an octagon shape in this green marble. If you look over at Merchandise Mart, you'll see this octagon shape, and then the lobby of Merchandise Mart is green marble. And the building next to it has green marble, and these circles cut out, just like nautical port holes. So tons of contextualism, all of these buildings giving little fist bumps to each other. It's very cool. You might recognize this building from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. They filmed this building, right? Crazy 80s, why not? But of course, the best part about this building, my favorite part and everyone's favorite, is that super reflective glass. How gorgeous is that? Perfectly shines the city back to itself. No two moments does this building ever look the same. Every day it looks different. My new favorite thing is this new construction, these three buildings with the cranes on top of them being shined in it. When these buildings are completed, this building will never look like this again. It's so cool. So the reflectivity, that idea of that, is to shine the city back to itself, giving Chicago what Chicago is giving. It's the same idea with the bean at Millennium Park. Has anyone been to Millennium Park on the bean yet? Cool, one person. Awesome. You enjoy yourself. Selfie Central is very cool. Well, the idea of the bean is not about the sculpture so much as it is the reflectivity. It's highlighting our skyline. That's the shape of it, so that it gets the best views of our city skyline. It's also great for selfies if you're into that sort of thing, which I know you are. Back to Merchandise Mart, why not? These busts out front here, these heads on blocks, these are Chicago merchant princes. These are the men who built up the city by selling things to Chicagoans. That's the idea. These were commissioned by the Kennedys. In Chicago, we call these heads the Pez Dispenser Hall of Fame because they kind of look like Pez dispensers, do they not? They're a little weird. So they were commissioned by the Kennedys. Why? Well, when Marshall Field constructed this building, the Great Depression happened. The stock market crashed. He owed a lot of money. He had a lot of debt. So he sold it to the only person who could afford a building like this, a Kennedy, right? He sold it to Joseph E. Kennedy for $12.8 million. His family later sold it for $630 million. So they definitely got the routine, the return. They got their money back for sure. Now this bridge that we're passing under, Wells Street Bridge, this was looking a little bit rough. So we piece by piece replicated this bridge perfectly. Every nut and bolt, every little bit of this bridge is completely perfectly replicated from the original. That's how much we love our bridges. We're not going to build a new one. We'll just build a new one that looks like the old one because we really enjoy our bridges. Now here on the right hand side, we have some more construction, of course. Why not? This is our old river walk, which we're tearing up. You can see when you get to the bridge here that you walk along the river and then you have to walk up these stairs across the bridge and down the bridge again. It's very tiring. It's not very nice. It's not handicap accessible in any way. So we're tearing all of this up. We're building our new river walk, which is just in front of us here, getting a bit of a show. This goes underneath the bridges instead of over the bridges, and this theater style seating, so you can have concerts out here, right? How cool is that? It's already pretty popular. This just opened up this summer, so it's very, very new. It's also wheelchair accessible, which is very cool. So I enjoy this for a minute. It's pretty cool. Airy glass looks like you can see right in the building, which is so gorgeous. Even at night, this building looks like you can see right through it. Now compare that airy building to the one directly next to it here, 55 West Wacker, the Pound Sign building. Ooh, this is called ugly stepsister on the river. Poor Victor Whacker. That is an example of brutalism. Brutalism, but the insults built right into the name. Heavy emphasis on materials, pre-molded concrete. You see that with a lot of institutional buildings. What it's doing here on the river, I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't look like anything else. Now the pound sign building, 55 Wacker, the building next to it here, 35 West Wacker, kind of has a pound sign in the windows there. So let's give a little fist bump to its ugly stepsister, which is kind of nice. This is the Leo Burnett building. This is home to Chicago's ad agencies. They've come up with such icons as Jellyfish Giant, Tiger, Pillsbury Doughboy, right here in this building. Now ahead of us here on the right-hand side, this stone building with the cupola at the very top there, and that green scaffolding at the very top. That is the jeweler's building. Now that scaffolding at the very top there, that used to hold a speakeasy called the Stratosphere Lounge. They sold illegal booze, bootlegged booze at the height of Prohibition. Now that scaffolding at the top, Stratosphere Lounge, had a very famous client, I suppose. Al Capone used to hang out at the top of this building at the height of Prohibition. Very famous bootleg gangster here in Chicago. He's hanging out very inconspicuous at the top of this building. Why not? In plain sight. Now in front of us here, there's this green building with the gold top by the Morton Steakhouse sign right here. This is the Carbon and Carbine building, definitely my favorite. This is by the Burnham Brothers at the height of Prohibition to build a building that looks like a champagne bottle. That is the inspiration. It certainly does. A green building, the gold top, like the cork. That gold at the top actually is real gold. That's 24 karat gold. You guys are seeing it at a perfect time of day when the sun hits it and shines so brightly. How gorgeous is that? That is now home to the Hard Rock Hotel. So if anybody's staying there, yeah, you've got a beautiful building that you're staying in. That's absolutely gorgeous. Now up here on the right-hand side, we have this very thin stone skyscraper here. This is 77 West Wacker. This is our thinnest skyscraper here in Chicago. She is a hotel. This was built to have two towers, sister towers, but the Great Depression happened right after this one was built, so only the one was realized. Now, her little neighbor here, getting a bit of a facelift. This is the London Guarantee and Accident building. And this was in disuse for a long time, and now we are renovating it into hotels as well. So it's really cool that we use classic, iconic buildings and then we renovate them into hotels so everyone can enjoy them. They were only announcing this last year, so the development has started really quickly, of course, because when we get going pretty quick around here in Chicago. We've only got so long to build things. It's going really fast. Now the bridge in front of us here, this is Michigan Avenue. If you go down Michigan Avenue to the right here, you'll hit Millennium Park. If you go down the left, you will get to the John Hancock building. Michigan Avenue is the Magnificent Mile. There's tons of shops and restaurants and all sorts of cool, fun things to do. You do some window shopping, pretend you can afford things at Tiffany's like I do, but I can't. So Michigan Avenue, also this is called Du Sable Bridge. This is named after our first non-native settler, Jean-Baptiste Pointe-du-Sable, who settled here in 1776 right here on this corner of Michigan Avenue. He was a fur trader. Now, if he sounds like he was French, Jean-Baptiste Pointe-du-Sable, he was not actually, he was Haitian. He was Afro-Caribbean. It wasn't a European who was the first non-native settler, it was a Haitian. How cool is that? Michigan Avenue also marks our old lakefront. This is where our lakefront used to start here, and now it's way back there. Everything in front of us here is man-made land. We took the debris from the Great Chicago Fire, pushed our lakefront way back, so that's why a lot of Chicago is very flat, is because we pushed our lakefront back. How cool is that? On the left-hand side here, we have this beautiful neo-Gothic building with a flag at the very top here, these flying buttresses. This is our very own tribute tower, built in 1925 by architects Howell and Hood. They were the winners of a contest to find the most beautiful and distinctive office building in the world. They were the winners across the street as the second place winners. This is 333.